Question number 11. I'll just put my finger up on a 1 again. 11. Just think 10 is in the background somewhere. Porfirio says, atheist claims, belief in God is what happens when social brains try to explain an impersonal universe. Personal explanations for impersonal events fail to deal with the logic of uncertainty. Help. Okay. The claim is belief in God is what happens when social brains... What exactly is a social brain? Is there a non-social brain? I think the implication here is that we have bias, and that our bias causes us to think there's agency behind things where there's no agency. I think that could be the nicest way to put that. That my bias, because I tend to think, maybe because I'm an agent, called a social brain, but I'm like a personal agent. I tend to see personal agency where there isn't it because I am a personal agent. So the statement is, belief in God happens when social brains try to explain an impersonal universe. Well, how did you know it was an impersonal universe? Although Christians aren't claiming the universe is personal. We're not claiming that. God is personal, but God's not the universe, so we're not actually claiming that. But is that really what's happening? Or is that just like a personal attack? So a personal attack here is just, oh, you're just biased. Like I'm getting this recently in my women in ministry study. I've been seeing people saying that I'm biased. And as far as I can follow, because I'm looking for examples of bias, like you made this claim, but this is wrong and I showed your bias. But instead the claim is you're disagreeing with egalitarians too much, therefore you're biased. And I'm like, okay, somebody's biased. But I don't think it's me in that case. And here it's just kind of a claim that hey, I'm going to psychologize you. You only think there's a God because your brain is wired that way. Okay. Can we test that claim? Can we find out, are humans generally good? Generally, are we good at detecting whether things are caused by personal agents or not? Like, for instance, I have a cup of water on the table here. I look at it, and I can conclude very easily that a personal agent placed that water there. It didn't just happen on its own. You know, when I go outside and I hear the wind rustling in my neighbor's big plants, he's got these plants with these big leaves, and the wind rustles in them, I quickly conclude that that's non-personal, that this is just wind and leaves engaging with each other. But then when I hear another sound, I know that a cat is climbing up the wall, because they like walking along my wall all the time, right? And so I tend to be pretty good at detecting personal agency behind things versus not. And I think humans generally are very good at this. This is why we don't just all day long go, what was that? What was that? How did that happen? Who did that? We don't do that all day long because we're generally very good at this sort of thing. I think the thing is that the atheist here is responding to the reality that we look at the universe and we go, there seems to be design here. And we even have strong biological and physics arguments for there being agency behind the creation of this reality that we live in. We have really strong arguments for this based on design. There's a fine-tuning argument in physics, and there's a fine-tuning argument related to biology. And they're both very powerful. In fact, even many atheists say that the fine-tuning argument is the most powerful because it appeals to our generally good sense of finding personal agency behind things and says, don't you see personal agency behind this too? To respond to that by saying, oh, that's just your social brain, I think is incorrect. Now, Richard Dawkins does this a little bit. He uses a stick analogy, and I've heard other atheists echo this. Hey, you're walking along the beach, you see a stick on the ground, it looks like a snake. And you think, oh, it's a snake. This helps protect you. Evolutionarily, it just helps protect you that you see a stick and you think it's a snake because then you're more cautious. So we look at the universe and we think there's a God. We get it wrong. But here's the thing. Usually we can tell when it's a stick or a snake. So if this analogy is going to be used, then it needs to be used that there's a good chance we're right about God because we're usually right about sticks and snakes. You might stop for a moment and go, stick. Is that a stick? Yeah, no, it's just a stick. It's a snake. But you could just tell a story about the imaginary psychology of ancient ancestors and then try to disregard God. But I'm saying, here's me right now today. I'm pretty good at detecting agency. So are you. I look at the universe. It seems completely obvious to me that God exists. And it does to a majority of the population of the world. There's a reason for that. It's because it seems to be very obvious. So, when he says his second claim here from the atheist is personal explanations for impersonal events fail to deal with the logic of uncertainty. Again, he's imported, if this is a quote from him, he's imported his conclusion into his argument. Personal explanations for impersonal events, he's assuming the creation of the whole universe and all the biological design, that those are impersonal events. That's circular reasoning. My conclusion is in my argument. And he says we're failing to deal with the logic of uncertainty. No, a lot of people could just say, seems very likely that God exists. I'm not certain, but I'm going to hold to it because it seems quite likely. So I don't see there's a problem there. Personally,